Good morning, coaches. Hope you're well. I am in New York City today, my favorite city in the whole world, New York City, to visit New York Red Bulls. Very, very famous club. Well, hopefully today we will get an insight into a little bit of the methodology, the coaching philosophies there, the coaching profiles, what training session looks like. It's a very, very unique style. It's a very, very unique city. So with a city like this on the doorstep, the environment plays a part as well. So excited, also excited to spend a bit of time in New York. I want to give you a little bit of background as to why I wanted to come up here and visit New York and visit the Red Bulls as well. Just as recent as yesterday, obviously Manchester United making a coaching change with Erik ten Hag about identity, style of play. And I feel as if people have been talking about this for years, where there's a style of play, they need to have an identity, the team needs to be able to play in a manner that we can see every week and that the coach is working on. But then how many different identities are there in football? Like, how many unique identities are there? And there's obviously the mainstream one, which is the Pep Guardiola Barcelona model, which revolutionized the game, and it's still there. He's still doing it with Man City. People have taken that on to a different level. There's the counter pressing, gegenpressing, whatever you want to call it, of Jurgen Klopp, which he modified as he evolved that Liverpool team as well. Then there's De Zerbi, perhaps. His style was pretty unique. Then there's Fernando Diniz at Fluminense, where it's the relationism, and that was in vogue for a couple of months. Don't know if it still is or not. But the Red Bull model has been going on for the history of the club. As they built the model, they've stayed true to their beliefs and they've stayed true to the state of play. And obviously with Jurgen Klopp coming on as well, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in that space. But why I wanted to come up here today is not necessarily to see the state of play or to ask questions about tactics. It's more about the methodology, it's more about the how. And I feel as if in football, because of this style philosophy question, because of that there being such a big part, we then get lost in the how, which is the methodology. So if the style and the formation and the tactics is the what, then the how is the piece that makes the what work and is probably the most important piece. Now, you're not going to see a lot of it on football forums, you're not going to see a lot of it on Sky Sports News, because they've got a 2-minute window to get people's attention, and that's just the way it is. There's no problem with that. But what I think is really, really important is that coaches don't consume football the way fans consume football. And what I mean by that is that coaches take more of an interest or have a passion or have a curiosity or have an enthusiasm for all the how, the details of what goes on behind it, how different relationships work, how things interact, how science, analysis, psychology, how all that works. Ultimately, we're consuming football today as coaches similar to how fans consume football, whereas maybe 5-10 years ago we were consuming football a little bit differently. There was coaching magazines, there was coaching courses, they were more long term. Now everything's remote. We do that at Modern Soccer Coach as well. I'm all for the remote aspect for it, but I also think that you've got to balance that off with getting the right level of information, talking to the right people, asking the right questions, having more in-depth conversations, having meaningful relationships in the game as you grow your coaching expertise. I think all of those are really, really important. So when I'm in New York today, I want to speak to Sean, has worked in Barcelona Academy in Arizona. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, we've done a couple of podcasts on it, but most recently with Jed Quinn. So please check that out. I'll put the link below. Sean has worked there as an academy director and he's been with Red Bull for a number of years. So you've got methodologies that I've said that this is the piece that I really want to get into. How do you do something? How do you look at something, take it apart, tear it down to youth level, teach it, all those great things. Sean has worked in 2 different styles of football to do that there, so I'm interested in how he has done that. I'm also interested in the fact that Sean's from the part of the world that I am, which is another culture of football. So if you want to add something into it, then you've got the environment where you're from that's played a role, but also the environment of this place, New York City. And when you're in New York City, the energy for it is unbelievable. The energy it gives off is unbelievable, and it's really, really hard to be in this city. I've been here a number of times, and every time I'm in this city, there's something electric about it. So does that impact the football? We've had podcasts about that before, from general managers, from technical directors, about trying to connect to a fan base. So does a style of football here in New York have to align with the lifestyle or the culture in New York City, which is, again, slightly unique? So you've got a unique playing style, you've got a unique culture, but I'm interested to hear today with Sean about how that works, and interested in getting his experiences a little bit about, I know he's really, really thoughtful, he's highly regarded in the game, so I know he's really deliberate about what he does, and he spoke really, really highly the last time we discussed Barcelona about the work with the ball, how he coached decisions, all those things. So how do you take that and put it into, again, a teaching model? Because that's what development academies are in essence. They've become a teaching model, whereas maybe 20-30 years ago, where we had Richie Ryan on, it was about resilience and grit and learning the trade. But now you've got to learn more than the trade to be a footballer today. You've got to learn a system, and you've got to learn how to function in a system and perhaps stand out in that system. But there is an idea of tactical learning as well, and I'm really, really curious about that, because I don't think we talk about that as coaches. We see analysis as, all right, X's and O's, and we do that, and then we see analysis at the senior level, an Amazon documentary where Jose or Mikel Arteta sits down and goes through what they're doing, and everyone says, oh, okay, that's great, and they go out and perform brilliantly. But that's not how it works, especially at youth level, where their understanding of the game needs to be built and structured and developed. So how do you do that in a style of football that is ultra intense and very, very fast paced? So I think I've said this on podcast episodes before about the attack and transition is the hardest element of the game to coach, because the variables can change depending on person. Some person might see an opportunity where they can dribble, some person might see no support. So how do you differentiate between that? Are there cues in place for that? And then all of a sudden, if you're a counter-pressing team, if you play ultra-aggressive, you're going to multiply the number of those attack and transitions. So it's okay to say we've got speed, or we're strong, or we embrace transitional moments. But there's a decision component, and there's a collective component to that as well. That if you keep trying to score in transition, does that then weaken your resolve to shape and structure and organisation behind that there? I don't know, but it's been a journey that I've been on as a coach as well, as I've looked at game models and worked through game models, trying to figure out how to teach and structure that side of the game alongside, the counter pressing component of it, where you're trying to win the ball back and trying to match all those together. So excited to speak to Sean today, and also learn a little bit more about Red Bulls, learn a little bit more about his journey, and talk about things that I think we don't talk about in football enough. So I hope you enjoy it. If you're a coach out there and you're engaged and you're enthusiastic about things like this and game models and methodologies, we have a new modern soccer coach mentoring opportunity coming up. We do annually. This is the time of year that we do it. We take on about 20 coaches and we go through a 6-week course. We go through the game models, coaching methodology, structuring and analysis, looking at individual development plans. This year we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to advance what we're doing. We're always looking to progress everything here at Modern Soccer Coach. So this year we're going to look at adding on a coach presentation. So if you're a coach and you're looking at saying, all right, my professional presentation needs to get a little bit better, if I'm looking at, applying for a job, or if I'm looking at, going into the next level and maybe connecting with the coach and showing them some ideas and getting some feedback, then I think this opportunity will suit you down to the ground. Limited amount of spaces, so we only take on 20, having everyone on there and everyone collaborating. We don't put it out, so it's something that I'm very, very clear on. It's not something that we promote once we start the course. We want everyone to be honest, we want everyone to be level of vulnerability, so we don't share what we post on it. So if you want to get involved, modernsoccercoach.com, and please join us. But thank you so much for the support. Please like, please subscribe, go into places and experiencing them and seeing them and speaking to people I think is what football is about. Again, like most people, I consume the majority of my coaching content online, but I think to get out, to speak to people, to have those conversations, I think are really, really important. So we couldn't do it without the support of the YouTube channel. We want to do more visits, we want to do more in-person events, we want to do more in-person visits, but in order for us to be able to do that, we've got to grow the channel even more. So please like, please subscribe. Thanks so much. I really, really appreciate all the support and really, really excited to speak to Sean today.
Let's start doing that. But then 30% of goals are scored by set pieces, and I'm definitely sure nobody spends 30% of training on set pieces. So if somebody's in a 1v2, he's like, oh, you know, pass back. No, go on. Can you take two? You can't develop creative players by saying, well, what's the numerical disadvantage? No, it's nonsense. People talk about it's a without the ball philosophy. I'd argue differently.